Hi friends, welcome to summer internship. Whether you have started this week or perhaps you're getting started in coming days, hope that you're excited about your opportunities to learn and grow during this summer semester. So glad that you're a part of the class. I know that we've talked about your positions already. Excited to see what you're going to learn and how you're going to grow and be stretched and challenged throughout the summer. Yeah, there's a PowerPoint that's available to you on Blackboard in conjunction with this course, and I'm going to walk through some of that in this video. Probably not hitting on everything, but wanting to highlight some things for you because I want you to be able to recognize some needs that you may have as you come into your ministry position this summer, but then to think about how to set some goals in order to overcome some of those areas of need. So that's sort of what this PowerPoint points us toward. So we'll be walking through some of this. If you printed it out or have it available, that you can just sort of follow along. Just want you to be able to do that. But before we go there, I want to read a passage of Scripture real quickly from Matthew chapter 6, verses 5 through 8. Jesus is speaking, Sermon on the Mount, probably familiar language to you, I would hope. Jesus is talking about prayer, and he says this, "When you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." I guess as a side note, I hope one of the things that you'll engage quite a bit this summer is the discipline of prayer. As each of you move into new situations, new ministry opportunities, I hope that you'll be praying for yourself. I hope that you'll be praying for those that you work with, for the organization that you're a part of, for friends who you know are doing this alongside of you in other places this summer. Very important that as you engage in ministry this summer, that you make prayer a regular part of your day in some capacity, in some way. It's not only how we communicate with God, but how we allow God to speak to us. And there are probably lots of things that all of us need to be hearing from God through the course of this summer. Well, back to verse 7. "And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him." I guess it's the end of there on verse 8 that I want us to sort of think about for just a minute. The idea that God knows our needs before we ask Him, before we even realize what some of our own needs are, that God is knowledgeable of those. One of the things that we're going to be talking about today is recognizing our needs and then setting goals to meet those needs. But I guess you may sort of be walking into a ministry situation and haven't really thought about areas of need that you have, whether that's personally or professionally. Maybe you just sort of live obliviously. Maybe it's just something that you haven't given a lot of thought to. I hope that you'll take some time as you think about needs and goals that perhaps prayer needs to be a part of that process. God, show me areas of weakness. Show me areas where I can grow and improve. Because I hope that this summer will be that for you. I hope it will be an opportunity for growth and advancement, not only advancing God's kingdom where you are, but in a sort of a growth in your practical ministry skills, but in your knowledge as well throughout the summer. So I hope that you'll make prayer a part of this process. To the PowerPoint we go. Part of the Part of the PowerPoint here, forgive me, the dog was barking and I got distracted for a minute. On the first page of the handout that goes along with the PowerPoint is the slide that talks about recognizing your needs as a minister. I think this is something that we don't always do a good job of in ministry. We don't always do a good job of recognizing our areas of need. But it's one of the things that I want us to think about. I don't think that we can set good goals for ourselves for this summer internship in particular without recognizing the needs that we have as a person and as a minister. Probably lots of different ways that we can define what a need is. This PowerPoint draws on the definition that need is the distance between what is and what ought to be. And so it takes some reflection, it takes some introspection for us to think about, okay, this is where we are, and this is where we hope to be or ought to be. And so how do we get from here to here? And that gap that we have is what we're defining as our need. The distance between our present reality and our hoped for reality. Needs can come in a couple of different outfits, if you will. There are personal development needs that I want us to be thinking about for this summer. These can come in two kinds: cognitive needs and skills needs. Cognitive things are the sorts of things that we feel like we need to understand better, we need to know better, we have to have a greater knowledge in an area. What do we need to know better in order to minister and to perform in the place that God has called us to? Perhaps you are working with a population group that you're not entirely comfortable with. Maybe you're teaching a Sunday school class and you're just not quite sure what's going on in the minds of these children or teenagers or adults or whatever the case may be. Perhaps there's some new terminology that you're running into, that your organization is using, some philosophical sorts of underpinnings. There may be things that you just need to know more about. And on top of the reading that's a part of this class, there may be additional things that you need to read and research and learn about because you realize that you're here, but you want your knowledge base to be here, and there's a need, and so what are you going to do in order to fulfill the need? Those sorts of cognitive, what do we need to know more about, how youth think, how they process information, what's a better way of understanding children and age differences and some of those sorts of things. There may be just more information that you need to know, and that, as one of your areas of need, might lead you to a particular goal that you need to set for yourself this summer. There are also skills that you may want to learn this summer as well. Things that you've never done before, but you realize that as a minister you need to know how to do these things. Maybe you've never put together a budget before. Maybe that's something, a practical goal that you can put into place because I know nothing about setting a budget. I know that as a minister of the gospel I need to be able to set a budget, and so how can we bridge that gap this summer is part of what I'm talking about here. And so you've got your own needs that I want you to be thinking about this summer, but there's also needs in your organization that I want you to think about this summer, and because this summer is not simply about you and your own fulfillment and growth. That's certainly a part of it, but you're a part of this church, you're a part of your organization this summer for a reason. And and part of what I want us to do this summer is to think about needs that we see present in the organizations in which we're working, and to think about how we can help meet needs within that organization as well. Maybe you recognize, for example, that there are not enough volunteers in your area of ministry and influence. Well, how can you help the church, who is here, not many volunteers, get to here where there's more adult involvement, more volunteers, for example? And thinking through that with your ministry supervisor, those sorts of things, I think can be a valuable part of the process. And so I want us to be thinking, and ultimately we will, the goal by the end of these first couple of weeks is for you to have set 3 personal goals. They could be any combination of cognitive and skills-oriented goals. And you'll also have 3 ministry-oriented goals, specifically related to the place of ministry where you find yourself. And we'll talk more about that as we move along. The second page, sort of moving through this PDF document a little bit more, just raises some questions that I think are pretty common sense sorts of questions as you think about trying to determine what your personal needs are. What do I need to know that I don't presently know if I'm engaged in ministry in this place? What do I need to know how to do that I presently don't know how to do as we begin to engage in ministry? And then there's an example that's listed here, and just recognizing, okay, this is something that I don't know, this is something that I need to know, and recognizing that there is a need, and we ask these questions to help us get to those areas of need. And then the next sort of slide that's mentioned here talks about determining ministry needs, organizational needs. And it's probably worth recognizing that if you are in a new place, a place that you are unfamiliar with, this is not your home church, for example, this is a new place, a new ministry, asking some of these questions to your field supervisor and thinking through these together, I think, would be very beneficial, because you don't want to set goals for your church, for example, this summer that you perceive because you've been there 1 week, that the rest of the church staff doesn't recognize or believe that those are needs, and then you go about trying to meet those needs, and there's not really a need there. So I think this is a point of conversation, and I would encourage you strongly to have a conversation with your supervisors about strengths and weaknesses within the church, within the organization. What sorts of things, what sorts of goals do they have set for themselves? What sorts of things are they trying to do in order to accomplish their mission, advance the kingdom, so that as you make goals in this particular area, they are goals that are related to real live needs that exist within your place of ministry. So those are just some questions to sort of get you thinking along these lines. This third box at the bottom of page 2 is not something that we're going to deal with. This PowerPoint has been used in a couple of different ways in the past, and so that Unit 1, Assignment 1 thing doesn't apply to you. There will be an assignment, as I've alluded to in the syllabus, that will come out of this, but don't worry about that right now. So, moving on to page 3, talking about needs and goals. If we recognize our needs, this is where we are, this is where we want to be, and we realize the difference. Let me get it in the screen there. The difference between those two. The goals become the ways in which we travel from where we are to where we want to be. Goals give us some concrete sorts of pavers, if you will, some steps to take that get us from where we are to where we ought to be or where we need to be. And I think a lot of people, period, a lot of people in ministry, even more particularly, sometimes recognize that we have needs in areas we don't know how to do this. We really wish we did know how to do it, but then due to busyness or